Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time it might be in your neck of the woods. And welcome to episode 38 of the Real Estate Playbook podcast. I wanted to take a moment to thank you for stopping in for another solo episode. The internet is a vast landscape, and we're happy that you've decided to spend this time with us instead of watching cat videos or whatever it is that you might do. That's what I usually do. So as you might notice, this is another solo episode. I've researched a couple more topics to discuss with you guys, as I did with the last one. If you saw the last one, thanks for checking that out, even though we didn't have a guest. I got some positive feedback from that one, which was nice. Didn't think anyone would be receptive to just hearing me talk, but it did okay. So thank you for that. This week, we're changing the gear of the topics a little bit versus the last one that we did. I keep saying we as if it's not just me. So last time, if you listened, went over a variety of topics. A couple of them were geared towards buyers and sellers, a couple towards agents. I want to let you know up top that this one is mostly things that will interest agents. So if that doesn't describe you and you still want to listen, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. But if you decide that this isn't the information that you'd like to be receiving at this point in time, totally get it if you're not an agent. What I would suggest for you is to go check out the other solo podcast episode. I'll put a link up or here, there, somewhere, wherever. If you're watching the video, you're seeing me pointing like a madman right now. If you're not, then just ignore that. But that first solo podcast does cover some things that will be considerably more helpful for you as a consumer versus, the agents out there. So for my agents, let's get right into it, shall we? I've got a couple different things to discuss today. This might end up being a relatively short one, we'll see, but got some interesting things here. So I wanted to start out with something that could be considered controversial. Ooh, I know, right? So if you're an agent or just an individual who watches television, I'm sure you've seen the multitude of real estate programming that has been on recently, although this is not really a new thing. There's been real estate TV shows for as long as I can remember watching television, but that being said, there are some that have gained notoriety, popularity, whatever you want to call it, in recent months, years. You might think of shows like Selling Sunset, $1 Million Listing, so on and so forth. Recently in Tampa, we actually had a few that how should I say this, weren't really appreciated by by some of the Tampa agents that I know. So I think these shows tend to get a bad rap in the real estate world. But the reason that I brought it up today, and before I go any further, let me acknowledge my source for these articles that I'm going to be talking about. That's floridarealtors.org, and that's where I got a lot of the articles for the last one from. So shout out to them for being a good resource for real estate news, tips, etc. I would encourage all of you to go check it out, whether you are an agent, home buyer, seller, or just a person, So that being said, this article was about, does reality TV skew buyers' perceptions of the real estate world? And I'm curious to know what you think. So Bess Friedman, and this individual is the CEO of Brown Harris Stevens. I'm not familiar with the organization, but I'm sure they have quite some notoriety if they are advising articles like this. Bess Friedman says that real estate TV shows are, quote, horrible for the industry and alarming in the way in which they portray real estate professionals. If you've seen any of these shows, you probably know what he's talking about. And I apologize, I don't know if this is a he or she or they or other, I'm not sure. But you might know what Bess is talking about if you've seen one of these shows. They tend to focus more on the, how should I say, the drama, the glitz, the glamour side of real estate versus, the actual, what some people would consider to be the boring part of it, the transactional aspect, the hard work that goes into it, a lot of the research that goes into it, and some of it can be pretty sensationalized. So if you ever watch one of these TV shows, you might get the impression that real estate professionals are prone to drama and soap opera-esque levels of debauchery and whatever else it is that they decide to show on these things. So what Friedman is saying is that this is, harming the industry at large, and affecting the way that people, namely home buyers and sellers, view real estate agents, which I guess the argument there is that when you continue to phase this perception at people that real estate agents are this way, they're less likely or less inclined to actually use a realtor when they need one, because they think, oh, this person is just in it for the money, or this person is going to bring drama to this transaction, whatever the case might be. I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a reach personally. I'd tend to agree with the other person that they cited on this article, which is Ryan Serhant, I hope I'm saying that right, from $1 Million Listing New York, who you might have seen on television. I personally have not. But he says that agents should embrace this shift in technology, this shift in media, and that, quote, the old way of selling real estate has completely changed, end quote. So I'm curious, what do you think? Because I'm more inclined to agree with Mr. Ryan here in that, I think no matter what it is you're showing on television, it's going to be sensationalized a little bit. I think the average intelligent consumer is able to separate the dramatized things that they see on TV from real life. Especially, I think everybody knows a realtor, at least one. So I think you would refer more to them as your source of normalcy, we'll say there. So what do you think? I'd be interested to hear some people's opinions on are these TV shows negatively impacting the way that people see the industry? Has that played a part in your career specifically? Let me know. I'd be interested to hear about that. So some interesting things here, and I'm going to lump in actually two different articles to talk about this, the little things that you can do as an agent to help you sell a home. So the first article I'll reference is talking about playing music at open houses. So is this something that you do, I wonder? Well, in any case, a 2015 Australian study found that the type of music playing at a restaurant can influence people's menu choices and even how much they are willing to spend at said restaurant, which makes sense. I'm guilty of this to a certain extent. I've been in retail stores before, not necessarily restaurants, where a song I like was playing. I was like, I will buy those pair of shoes. You know what I mean? So I think there's some validity to that. Does this play a role in open houses, getting a home sold, so on and so forth? If you would like to play music at your open house, I think it's crucial, as this article goes on to demonstrate, that you consider the local market, you consider where you are, demographics, things like that, who will be in attendance at the open house before you play music. So if you are in rural, say Alabama, you might not want to play death metal or anything like that. In fact, I don't think death metal will be a good choice in any circumstance, but you never know. A lot of people on this article, or I should say the source that they cite, is they suggested instrumental music, which I think is a pretty safe, neutral choice. Put on some lo-fi beats or something like that. If you know what that is, my respect. But in any case, I think music on in the background, as I'll circle back to this in a second here, but I think it definitely can't hurt. The second article that kind of lumps into this point that I'm making is suggesting that rainy days are great for showing homes. So first off, if you're like me and you're at home and it starts raining, like it did last night here in Tampa, Florida, you feel real cozy. You feel, secure in your home and safe, warm, in a word. So getting that experience at an open house perhaps could help someone, picture themselves in the home. And then on a more practical note, it can help buyers spot any water-related issues that there might be with the home. For example, drainage, some moisture lingering in indoor spaces, so on and so forth. You get the picture there, but relatively short article. But I wanted to lump those two together to make a point here that real estate professionals, real estate agents often have this perspective that you are not a salesperson, which I happen to agree with. You are just basically helping someone reach a goal. You, especially in this market, you're not necessarily having to really sell anything, right? The things kind of sell themselves. If you need a house, you're going to buy the house. But there are some scenarios where you might have to employ some salesperson-like tactics. For example, the open house is a perfect scenario for this. You want to create an ideal environment for people to basically picture themselves in the home. So you want to appeal to that principle of pathos, which is basically just appealing to people's emotions. Since you are not actually selling a product per se, you're really selling a dream, for lack of a better word, at risk of sounding corny there. So if you do appeal to people's emotions through things like the music, obviously you don't control the weather, but if it's raining, fantastic. I'm sure the transaction is more likely to go smoothly. So moving on to the next article here, in something that is of no surprise to Floridians, Florida has been reporting the largest year-to-year increase in net migration among all the United States. That's right, folks, all of them. Now, this is based on primarily the census and some other data sets. Some of this came from Zillow. But the notable statistic out of this, because I'm sure, like I said, this is no surprise, is that the top two states that make up folks that are migrating here, or flocking here, as they say, are New York and California. Closely behind New York and California, which, by the way, make up 10% each of the migration chunks, are Illinois, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So the question is why? Why are people flocking to the state of Florida? Well, there's the obvious reason, which is, hey, we're the Sunshine State. We live where you vacation. Come on down to Party Town, right? That's what they say. No, I just made that up. It's weird laughing at yourself when there's no guest present, but I hope you get a chuckle out of that. But there are some other reasons that people don't often think of. Well, the first thing would be, perhaps you do think of this, that Florida boasts no state income tax. I'm sure that's big for people coming from New York and California because they are among the highest as far as state income tax goes in the United States. Second here, we have a huge influx of retirees constantly. I mean, this has been true for Florida for as long as one can probably remember. Snowbirds, as they call them, they flock from up north to the warm weather. They want to retire here. They picture the idyllic life, settling down in the Keys or Miami or wherever it might be. And that's something that I'm sure is not going to be changing anytime soon. So something interesting that I discovered actually while I was reading this article that I never knew, unlike some of these other things, Florida actually has attracted more tech companies than any other state in 2021, with over 10,000 jobs being created. So look out, Silicon Valley. Tampa's coming for you. Miami's coming for you. Fort Myers is coming for you. I thought that was an interesting statistic. You always hear about people pontificating about where will the next tech hotbed be in the United States, and perhaps it will be Florida. I mean, 10,000 jobs, that's a lot of jobs. So certainly that's contributed to the migration as well. And then you have some other less savory things that I don't really like to talk about on this podcast, but there's politics that plays a role in it. Some people like the more lax COVID measures, comparatively speaking, to other states, especially New York and California. I was just in New York a couple months ago, and it was like a whole different world. So certainly that's a motivator for some people. So yes, people are flocking to the Sunshine State, and we welcome you with open arms. However, this is probably creating a unique situation for us with people continuously coming in. The demand is on the rise, as they say, and agents are probably having to work even harder on the buy side with their clients to get people into homes when you're having all this competition from migrants, for lack of a better word there. Transplants, as they say. So the next thing here, a new survey says that about 25% of home buyers are now considered undecided home buyers, meaning they're basically dragging their feet. Perhaps they can be counted amongst the potential buyer pool. However, they are undecided and not exactly willing to make the purchase. So as an agent, how do you handle these things? Well, in a separate article, Florida Realtors discuss the best objection handlers for these undecided buyers. So there's a couple in here. I'm just going to go over a few out of the list that they provide, some of which I found quite interesting. The first one being, is your buyer waiting for lower mortgage rates? Well, the best thing you can do in such a circumstance is to educate the buyer about said circumstances which led to the recent record low mortgage rates, that being, for lack of a better term, a tanking economy, a global pandemic, et cetera, and that this confluence of events, of factors, are unlikely to happen again in the fashion in which they did. Therefore, it's much more likely that rates will continue to head upwards gradually, And we'll return to historic averages. Therefore, if you are looking to buy, your best time is now instead of dragging your feet and waiting for those rates to go back up, in which case you're just paying more. So I think that's a solid argument, a solid objection handler for that specific type of undecided buyer. Another one here, are your clients waiting for home prices to fall? Well, Medford team CEO Carl Medford suggests that more inventory is unlikely to offset interest rates. Therefore, your purchasing power is not going to change that much. And at the end of the day, he says the most important number is not the home purchase price itself, but rather the amount of the monthly mortgage payment, which I think is a solid argument that any agent could make to a potential client. At the end of the day, you want to know how much you're going to be paying every single month. And, home prices going up or going down is unlikely to affect that mortgage payment, because there are a lot of factors that go into that, as we know. Two more objection handlers. Is your client wanting to lowball? Well, as any agent can tell you, in this market, lowball offers will quickly get you removed from the competition and are likely a waste of time. So that's how you could handle such a conversation. And the last one I have here, do you want to remain a renter? Does your client want to remain a renter? Well, rents will continue to go up. The reason for this is likely landlords attempting to cover higher mortgage rates alongside steeper maintenance and labor costs. This is a situation I find myself in personally where, not necessarily ready to transition into home buyer, but not super keen on being a renter. For people like myself, there's a ton of different options to approach the home buying process, whether it be like down payment assistance programs that we discussed on the last solo episode, or rent-to-own programs, of which there are many out there. So research things like that. Divvy, Ribbon, I think, are some good examples of that. So those are definitely good options for your buyers. So last but not least, this will be a short one, like I said, but I found something really interesting on floridarealtors.org, and it is titled "A Secret Stash of Leads?" And you're probably wondering, what is this stash? Well, experts say that expired listings are the perfect source for agents to find new leads. The owners of these expired listings may be unaware that the market is as competitive as it is right now, so it may be worth contacting people in your area whose listings expired, came off the market, and just trying to figure out exactly what circumstances led to that situation, perhaps giving them data about how much property values have appreciated in the past year, and perhaps that could land you a listing, my friend. So I think that's a gold mine. I would recommend reading that article itself because they do go into more detail about some other options for acquiring new leads other than just expired listings, and more specific tactics on how to approach it. So I'll put all the links down in the description for all these articles that we discussed today if you'd like to research them further. But like I said 3 times now, I think this will be a short one, guys. I don't have too much to discuss, but I wanted to make sure I got some content out to you this week. As always, if you could follow us on social media at The Real Estate Playbook. That's on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The website is therealestateplaybook.com. Make sure you subscribe, and 5 stars on the Spotify and Apple Music. And my friends, thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Take care.